Everything But Politics podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Everything But Politics podcast. Today we have a very special guest who I was fortunate enough to meet a few months back down in Miami. This week's guest is entrepreneur and president of JB Benefits and Consulting for nearly 3 decades, as well as author of Health Insurance Sucks: The Moral Case for Better Business Healthcare, Mr. John Butler.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Great to be here.
That's great to have you on. John, I guess kind of before we get into everything regarding your book, why don't you give our listeners a little background on yourself?
Yeah, well, I come from a securities background. That's when I started in the business back in 1988. Built up a securities business for many years. In 1996, I bought a block of employee benefits business. And so I kind of coexisted in the employee benefits space for decades. And then fast forward to today, I sold my securities business last year and I'm just in the process of selling my employee benefits business right now. So at this particular point, I am kind of following on the heels of this book, spreading some of the knowledge that I gained over the last 12 to 14 years in the business health insurance space and healthcare space, and trying to advance that pretty much the rest of my career. So,
Yeah, super interesting. And going back to some of the things that you said you did learn in the book, a quote from the book is, I sadly came to the realization that I was simply part of the problem. When you did have that realization, as someone that's been in the industry for such a long time, what's going through your head? Like, when you have that realization, how do you push yourself forward and say, what do I have to do next?
yeah, that's a really good question. The world that I was in before was I'm from the state of Minnesota here, and we only have, at that particular time, we only had about four carriers, health insurance carriers in the state. So one of my businesses would have like a 20% increase. And the only thing I knew how to do was to go to the other insurance carriers and quote what they had and try to knock down that 20% down to 10% or 15% or something like that. But then, each of the carriers would come back. I'll use Blue Cross as an example. Blue Cross would come back to us as brokers and say, hey, if you renew your group with us, let's just say I've got a group of 25 people. If you renew with Blue Cross Blue Shield, we'll pay you an extra, 5 grand or 8 grand just to renew with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And that got me to thinking, okay, well, how are the incentives set up here? Let's just say I got another quote from another insurance company that didn't give me a bonus, right? I was incentivized to try to keep things with Blue Cross Blue Shield, to get that extra 8 grand. And, back, this is decades ago, but I didn't really, understand that you could do anything different than just go to these four different companies within the state of Minnesota, and that's all they could do. When I started researching this, I realized, my God, you can go to all kinds of different resources that some brokers aren't even aware of. Most brokers, wouldn't even be able to sell these products in the open market because they're not licensed to sell them. But there's all kinds of alternatives that I had other than just going to these four companies, shopping them, and then, sitting in a weird situation where a company like Blue Cross Blue Shield giving me extra money just to try to keep it with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, if you think about it, if you guys were my clients, you would never even know that Blue Cross Blue Shield was giving me 8 grand to keep you with Blue Cross Blue Shield, would you?
No.
No, and I might come back to you and say, well, you know what? I got bids from the other insurance companies. One of them gave 10% increase, the other one gave 12%, but I was able to negotiate Blue Cross Blue Shield down to that 12%. So now you're sitting there and going, well, we don't have to change, offer a big, huge change to our employees right now, right? They're staying with that same Blue Cross card, the same network. They don't change doctors. They don't change anything. and I just got an extra 8 grand in my pocket. And I'm like, there's something wrong here. I mean, this is a system that something is really, really wrong here. And after I started really looking into it, and even, before I even started to write the book, I realized, a lot of this stuff is actually intentional. The health insurance companies are doing this on purpose, and they're kind of in collusion with the pharmacy companies. Oh, anything from the hospitals to, it's crazy how the whole thing is kind of set up. It's operating within a system, and most employers can't see outside that system, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it definitely does.
So crazy, John. And you mentioned how this has been going on for decades. How many years do you think it's been?
Well, employers got involved in healthcare, not by their own request. It was after World War II. There was wage and price controls by the government. So employers just went out and instead, they couldn't increase an employee's wages at all, and they had control of their prices. So they offered healthcare as an incentive to come work for them. And there's so many employers that did this. The government finally passed a temporary law. Whenever government says they're going to pass a temporary law, look out, because it usually doesn't go away. So they passed this law saying employers could tax deduct any contributions on behalf of employees for health care. And that kind of tied the whole system together. Employers got tied to health insurance, started contributing for these employees, tax deducted that. But then, that system kind of got more and more convoluted. And, the best way I can describe it is if a company had a car insurance plan that the government allowed me, let's just say you guys were my employees, allowed me to deduct those premiums on car insurance. And then, let's just say I had those 25 employees. And then 2 employees got DUIs and cracked up their cars. And the other 23 employees' rates went up by 30%. You'd kind of think that's messed up, wouldn't you? I mean, that's messed up.
Totally messed up.
And so literally insurance companies take a company of 25 employees, they come back to the broker each year and they say, "Hey, your claims were bad." You know, not that Blue Cross or whatever United Healthcare can't just take all of these premiums in and manage the claims in this large pool. No, they're going to penalize your little company of 25 employees or whatever it is. It could be 100, could be 200. They always come back and they say, "Hey, your claims were bad." Well, if it was a car insurance plan and everybody owned their own car insurance, even if 3 people did have DUIs, it wouldn't affect, if you guys had good car, driving records and didn't have any accidents, your rates wouldn't go up, would they?
Nope.
So that's the system. That is literally a short description of the system that employers are caught up in. So the claims affect the premiums. Subsequent years come along and here's a 5, 15, 25% increase. And they don't understand, a way out of the system.
And do you think, sorry, Merrick, do you think that at one point we'll ever entirely get out of this system?
Yeah, that's another great question. There's a little known law that was passed and it became effective in 2020 that allows employers now to fully deduct contributions to individuals and allow them to get their own insurance in the marketplace. So it's a little bit complicated, but not too complicated to explain. In my state of Minnesota, those premiums are about 25% less than a company's insurance plan on average. But then there's other states that, those premiums are a little bit higher. But what really changed everything for me was I started to, my wife and I were on a group plan in 2018. The insurance company here in Minnesota was called Medica. And we had a $4,000 deductible. And it came due in like July. And it was going to be $2,000 a piece. Or I'm sorry, $2,000 for the two of us for a $4,000 deductible. And I said to myself, gosh, this is ridiculous. I mean, at the time we were like 61 years old or something. And went to the marketplace and found out that there's a little known system out there called health sharing. You guys heard of health sharing before?
If not,
No.
So health sharing it works just like health insurance used to years ago, to where a bunch of people just pay into a system, and then you pay a certain amount up to like $1,000, and then this health sharing company shares the rest with the pool of money that they collect from everybody around the United States. Health sharing companies have been around for 30 years now, but my wife and I at that time, we decided, okay, well, let's look at health sharing. We went from 2000 a month with our Medica plan for a $4,000 deductible to $389 a month for both of us with a $1,000 out of pocket maximum. So if anything happened to either one of us, we pay the first 1,000, not 4,000 like the Medica plan, the first 1,000, and then the health sharing company covers the rest. So that was in like July of 2018. So just a matter of months afterwards, in fact, Christmas Eve night, my wife had a pain in her arm, and I rushed her to the hospital in Burnsville, Minnesota here at 11 o'clock at night, Christmas Eve night. And I was scared. I mean, she was spooked too, like what's going on here? It turned out to be an infection. We were in the hospital from 11 o'clock till 3 in the morning, so 4 hours. And they treated her for the infection, and happy to say she was fine. But we get a bill about, and by the way, they never asked me for a health insurance card, not once in the emergency room. So she was in the doctor's room and the hospital room. I'm out there in the waiting room. They never asked me for a card one time, which I thought was unusual because I was waiting for them to ask me. Anyway, we get a bill about 6 weeks later for $6,750. And I call up the hospital and I said, well, we got this bill and I'm not sure how to pay it. And she goes, well, what kind of insurance do you have? And I said, well, we don't have insurance. We're cash payers on a health sharing plan. And she goes, oh, hang on, let me get to my other system. And she went away from her one computer, went to her other computer, recalculated the whole thing. And she says, we're going to send you out a revised bill for $3,125. So more than 50% off because I'm a cash payer. We gave that $3,125 bill to our health sharing company. At that time, we paid the first $500, and we paid the first $500, and they paid the hospital the rest.
so when you're advising maybe people that don't have the best idea of how this kind of stuff works, and it comes down to health sharing or health insurance, what is your like push towards health insurance or health sharing over health insurance? Why do you say it's better?
Well, I don't push anything because, the fact is the health sharing program works how the health insurance used to work before the Obamacare bill was passed. They used to be able to ask medical questions, and now there's a medical kind of requirement for health sharing. So it's not right for everybody. So if I have a company of 100 employees, the biggest thing is education. That's by far the biggest thing. But let's just imagine you're that company of 100 employees. Half of them might not be comfortable with health sharing. In fact, maybe more than, let's just say 60 of them are just going to do the health insurance because there are no medical questions when you sign up for individual health insurance around the country now. That's part of the Obamacare bill that kind of helped a little bit, right? So you could have cancers or heart issues or anything. No questions whatsoever. So 60 of you go ahead and apply for the health insurance, and the other 40 say, wow, that's a pretty good deal. I can get, major reductions. My boss pays, most of the health sharing costs. So it's a matter of first education and then choice after that, because we don't force anything on these employees. They might not be comfortable with it the first year, and by the second year, they might be more comfortable with it. So, but on average, we could take a company of 100 employees with $1 million Blue Cross Blue Shield, group plan down to 40 to 60% less in total cost. So everybody's covered. The employer now is out of the risk marketplace. Really, the claims don't matter anymore to the employer because they're just a money provider. That's all they're doing. Kind of like the car insurance plan program that I talked about. And so there's not going to be a time when an insurance company is going to come back to the employer at the end of the year and say your rates are going up because they don't have a health insurance renewal anymore. Does that
Wait,
make sense?
yeah, it does make sense. But I do want to take a step back real quick, to that point in time where you kind of did realize that the health insurance system was broken. And in the book, you mentioned how you hate puzzles, but there was a puzzle piece that you needed to find. Can you kind of explain to our listeners what that piece was and how you found it?
Yeah, I talk about math, and I love math, but puzzles, put me down on a table with 1,000 piece puzzle and forget it. I'm not going, I'm not going there. But it's actually a number of different puzzle pieces in there. It's like health sharing might be a puzzle piece. The program that I just described to you guys, where individuals own the coverage, I call it a cafeteria plan, where your boss, it's easy to understand because a restaurant cafeteria, then your boss might give you $10, for your tray, but you get your own shit. You buy your own stuff, and that's it. Pretty easy to understand. So the puzzle pieces on a cafeteria plan are health sharing, the third party administrator who pays the premiums to the health insurance companies on the employee's behalf, the compliance piece. So there's a number of puzzle pieces that have to go in to each of these different solutions that I have in my book. But just that one puzzle piece with the health sharing, I mean, that can reduce down costs by 20 to 40% right in there. I mean, just out of $1 million budget, that's real money. We're talking $200,000 to $400,000. It's not chump change when it comes to a business that's trying to survive.
No, not at all. And you hear, I feel like in a mainstream sense, health insurance is definitely dominated in that regard. Why do you think health sharing isn't as a popular of a thing?
Mostly because people have never even heard of it before. That's a
Prior to
lot
your
of it.
book, I'd never heard of it. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm curious.
But what's happening naturally in the marketplace is people are choosing other alternatives other than the high ticket cost of health insurance. So, I mean, you could be like I could be working for a company and the company pays my entire premiums because they say, hey, you come work for us, we pay 100% of your premiums. But if my wife and two kids have to pay their own way, and it's $1,700 or something like that, because it's that's about what it's going to be, right? Well, on their own, they can look at health sharing, outside of their company plan and find out, oh, they could cover a wife and two kids for as little as $450. So naturally in the marketplace, they're just choosing this. But when people don't know about it as much, especially employers, they don't know about it as much because they're used to this in the system. It's kind of like that old story about, the fish swimming along, two fish swimming along, and a turtle comes by and says, "How's the water, guys?" And later on, the one fish says to the other one, "What's water anyway?" You know. So they're in this system, and they have no way of seeing outside the system. So my book kind of opens people's eyes to the fact that there's solutions out there. In my first, I think it's actually the first couple chapters of my book, I talk about the whole system as being a big hourglass, to where all the employers in the world are at the top of that hourglass, and all the solutions are at the bottom of the hourglass. But the only way that you see outside that system is that channel that drains the sand down, and I call that the distribution channel in my book. And that was me. That was me, broker, that would say, "Hey, you're on Blue Cross Blue Shield right now. I'm just going to show you the solutions at the bottom of that hourglass that I want you to see." You see where I'm coming from here?
Absolutely.
Employers don't know that I'm just showing you what I want you to see, which actually benefits me financially if you just stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So there's a lot of other things besides a cafeteria plan that I talk about in my book, and they all have their own puzzle pieces, Merrick. That you have to find that puzzle piece, and when you plug it in, you realize, oh my God, this just changes everything. So I think the cafeteria plan is the most transformative of anything I have in my book, but the other ones in there they're worthy to be looked at too. So.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because as a broker, like you said, like you were benefiting from all these plans that were out of place. Like what At what point in time did you kind of realize that I can't, like, I gotta stop worrying about myself and I need to get this out there to the point where you wrote a book about it?
Yeah, there was actually a time, this is 2011, where I had one of my groups that was with, I don't remember which insurance company it was with, but they had really, really bad claims and they were kind of stuck. And and I thought to myself, they're stuck because I think it was like they had a premature baby going on. You know, it was an ongoing claims cost and another cancer within this group. So they're not going to change their insurance because of those two situations, right? For sure, they're not going to change. But then about mid-year the next year, I went out and looked at the individual marketplace. And in Minnesota, the individual health insurance rates, this is not health sharing. This is just the individual health insurance rates were 60% less in 2011 than a regular traditional group insurance plan. And actually, Snap Fitness is one of those companies in my book. And Peter Taunton was nice enough to do a little quote in the back of my book. But we took Snap Fitness from a 40% increase with all those problems that existed to a 40% decrease. So it was a dramatic change. Everybody was covered, and that's a much longer story that I really probably don't have time to go into right now. But that was the time in 2011 that it opened up my eyes to, wait a minute, why is the business owning this? Why can't individuals own this? And then as the years went on, I started just studying other things, other books on the subject. And believe me, there's different ways of doing this other than just the cafeteria plan. Um, you know, it's like my favorite, one of my heroes is Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Thomas Sowell, but he has a quote. He says, "There's no solutions. There's only trade-offs." So, you know, in my world of old school, like trying to decide what to do with something, I'd make a list and I'd put what's the positives and what's the negatives, you know? So there's always negatives, you know, and so you got to weigh the positives and negatives. So there are some negatives in the cafeteria plan design too. It sounds like it's the overall like solution, you know, like a nirvana solution or something. Well, it's not because that's the way life is. There's only trade-offs. So, I mean, and in my consulting role now, I see myself as being able to come forward and say, hey, I'm going to tell you the honest, unvarnished truth. No matter what it is, you're going to hear the truth from me about whatever it is. And then you, Mr. or Mrs. Employer, you decide what's best for you and your employees. So that's kind of how my journey went there.
Yeah, and John, aside from you, do you know many other brokerage people who kind of have stepped away from, taking advantage of people and are working towards, better healthcare solutions?
You know, I don't know of that many, frankly. And you know what? As much as I just beat up brokers really bad, the insurance companies have a pretty strong hold on these brokers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna mention a situation that I didn't mention in my book, but this is a dramatic situation for me way back when. I This was back when I discovered that 2011 60% difference in the rates, in Minnesota here. I had a company called True Choice Services back then. And all of the insurance companies, the Health Partners, Medica, Preferred One, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, I went to all of them and said, look, this is real. These rates are, 40 to 60% less. And I put together a design that allowed employers to choose an individual plan rather than a group plan, right? Well, little did I know at the time, and there was different rates with each of these insurance companies. It happened to be one insurance company was way higher in their rates than all the other insurance companies at the time. So they didn't get my business, right? Because why would I put all these individuals with an insurance company that their rates are way up here when you could get it for 60% less, right? I'm not going to do that. Well, it turns out that particular insurance company didn't like what I was doing at all. And I was still getting a pretty fair amount, probably 2 to 4 grand a month off of this one insurance company plan. And what happened to me was a guy that was almost literally half my age that represented this insurance company and said, you know what? You haven't given us any business through your True Choice Services individual plan, so we're canceling your contract as of the end of this month. And that meant that that 2 to 4 grand was going away like that. And so brokers can be let go for cause by insurance companies. If the insurance companies don't like what you're doing, guys, they can cancel you. Now, I was fortunate enough to find a workaround on that whole thing, which again, that requires more time to go into. But it made me realize, even while writing this book, hey, for whatever you think the brokers are doing wrong, the insurance companies control the brokers. Okay?
Yeah.
They have really ultimate control over the brokers. So don't beat up on the brokers too much out there.
Yeah, that's a
But
shame.
I guess while we're talking about the brokerage firms, in the book you mentioned that most of the money they make is from selling the traditional retail plan or fully insured models. I think it'd be really beneficial for our listeners if you can kind of go into deeper detail on that and explain what exactly that means for the people buying their plans.
Yeah, well, in a business in general, when you're selling different products, you have different margins where basically there's a higher profit margin on certain products than others, right? Well, when I say the traditional model, I mean the fully insured models. The fully insured model means that you're giving all of your money to the insurance company, let's just say United Healthcare, each and every month. So, like, I mean, using the example of a company I have in Minnesota here, where they used to be on this plan, they were giving $28,000 a month for their 40 employees, and they were guaranteed never get that money back, not one penny. So, of all those 40 employees, let's just say they never had any claims, which is kind of weird, but just hypothetically for a second, even if they never had any claims, not only would they not get any money back, but they would probably come back the subsequent year and say, your rates are going to go up 5% or 10%. Okay. Um, that's the highest profit margin of any of the insurance company's products by far. Okay. So when you have that high of a profit margin, which product are you going to try to push in the open market to your brokers and brokerage firms? I mean, you want them to sell that product, wouldn't you? Because that allows whatever insurance company to get the highest profit margins each and every time. If you do it somewhat different, it might break into those profit margins. So, and that's, the whole collusion of the whole thing of where employers got kind of roped into this and said, hey, you can deduct the premiums and you can get your people on board. But then that claim mess happens at the end of every year. And every single company knows this. They have no idea what their rates are going to be going up at the end of this year. Okay. So that company of 40 employees where they're spending 28 grand a month, they don't know until it comes to September, October at the end of the year, November. Okay, that 28 grand is going to be 38 grand. Now that's scary. And if you're in business where, lately inflation is kind of kicking us right now, we're talking about a looming recession and whatever. Okay, you can't have your products and your operating expenses in a business just go up from 28,000 a month to 38,000. If it was your lease or your rent for your office, for your employees, I mean, you'd go out and you'd find some other place to house those employees and spend a different amount in rent. But a lot of these companies out there, they just feel like they're stuck. They have to have insurance to keep their companies or employees and attract employees, right? And then when they get this increase and the broker comes back and say, well, you had bad claims. I mean, let's face it. I mean, what are you going to do? They feel stuck.
Now, that's a great example you provide with if the rent was raised from 28 to 38, you're obviously going to find a new place to stay, and it's not much different when it comes to these plans. But something I
Yeah.
want to do real quick, or not real quick, I want to take some time to talk about it. What you've been in the industry for a few decades now. So back when the Affordable Care Act came into place, also known as Obamacare, how did the health insurance landscape change here in the United States?
Yeah, that's a pretty deep question. I mean, there are trade-offs in this answer, okay? And some of them are tremendously advantageous trade-offs. So you can't just with a sweeping statement say the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare was a horrible thing. The best way I can describe this is that 40-person company was down in a southern Minnesota town called Blooming Prairie, Minnesota. I got this group about a year ago, February, and the CFO actually read my book. And he came back to me and he said, "Can you just do an analysis of our program down here?" And so I took all of their 40 employees, and instead of using health sharing at all, because I really didn't latch on to health sharing in a really major way until about a year ago, okay? That's when this really came into focus for me that this can be used. But I just used, and you guys are in what state right now?
Currently Indiana, but we spend a lot of time in Florida as well.
Okay. So each state has a different, what they call an exchange. In Minnesota, we have something called MNsure here. In Indiana, I'm not sure if it's healthcare.gov or it's a particular exchange, but you can buy individual policies at a discount. And I don't know if you recall that part in the book, but when you go to buy individual insurance now, it depends on your family situation, how many kids you have and so forth, and how much you make. So there was a little known bill that was passed about almost 2 years ago now that said no one person buying an individual health insurance plan can pay more than 8.5% of their income towards health insurance. Okay? So here's what happened. I went to this 40-person company that was paying $28,000 a month, and I just took them all to the exchange hypothetically if they applied for individual insurance. It took their $28,000 a month down to about $18,000 or $19,000 a month. But what really impacted me is there was one guy on the plan with 4 kids, and his total premium was $2,700 a month, of which the company paid about $1,000 of that. So Dan paid $1,700 a month, and I'm not sure about the facts of this, but he has 4 kids, and I believe he lost his wife. So it's a tragic kind of situation. No matter what, it's still trying to insure 4 kids, right? So when I took Dan to the exchange, realizing that the employer's paying $1,000 of the $2,700, I looked at his situation. If he would apply at his income with 4 kids, what was his total premium? And they happened to be with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota. So I took him to the individual market with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota. So it was the same insurance card for $1,000 less of a deductible than he currently had on the group. The total premium for Dan and his 4 kids, Merrick, was $832 a month. And I went back to the CFO and I said, look, if you did this plan, like the cafeteria plan, and you used the exchanges, how much would you pay for Dan's? You used to pay about $1,000. How much would you pay of the $832? And he said, well, we'd cover $800. So Dan would go from $1,700 a month to $32 a month. The same Blue Cross Blue Shield card in his hand with a $1,000 lower deductible.
That doesn't
Now,
even seem real.
That's amazing.
No, it doesn't. But you know what? What it made me realize back in February, it was a year and a half ago, this works in every single state in the union, Merrick. You don't even have to use health sharing if you don't want to. So for any company under 50 employees in size, they are free to do whatever they want. They're free to go get an individual plan without using the exchange as a discount mechanism. To use the exchange, it'd be kind of foolish not to use the exchange. But then, so I got team leaders in every single one of my little puzzle piece categories. And, there's health insurance companies nationwide now that will help people on exchange and help them enroll. So, you know what? They haven't pulled the trigger on this yet at this company because it's the employer that makes this decision. It's not Dan that makes this decision. It's the employer, right? So, but if they do make this decision, I mean, I can't imagine me raising 4 kids and going from, okay, you're going to have an extra $1,700 in your pocket next month. And it can happen in any of the states in our union. So I think that's the one I'm most excited about. You can probably tell.
I mean,
Yeah,
as
that
you
was
shared,
fast.
that's significant. I mean, like you said, to have a family of four as a single parent and have an extra $1,700 a month that can go towards pretty much anything your kids need is just monumental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really outside the system if you think about it. They passed that law that allows companies to, provide money to employees in, it was effective January 1 of 2020. So, if you think about it, it hasn't been that long. Not many people even know that you can do this. And certainly not many people know that you can't pay more than 8.5% of your income towards health insurance. The crazy thing about Dan's situation, if you think about it, guys, whatever Dan was getting paid right now, the only way his insurance premium would go from 832 up to whatever is if he got a raise. If he
Interesting.
got a raise, you know, then it's going to be 8.5% of that new income, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
So I
fascinating.
know that's a little bit convoluted and in the weeds here, but that's how messed up this thing is. Okay. That is messed up. If you like, first of all, the insurance companies they signed on to this whole Obamacare bill way back when. I kind of was wondering why they did that. But, they're getting subsidies from the federal and state governments. And if you look at their share prices since the Affordable Care Act was passed, it's like this. I think United Healthcare is up something like 2,600% in 13 years.
Wow.
And if you pay attention to United Healthcare anywhere around the country, they're putting up new buildings every single month. It seems like you see something happening there, but it's at the expense of a lot of people who really don't know what's going on out there. Mostly employers that just keep on doing the same thing,
Yeah,
Well, and
unfortunately.
I feel like hold on one second. I feel like a big problem in this space is for most people that work a job, in the office every day. Like when they get home, this is one of the last things they want to learn about or put their
Oh
energy.
yeah,
Like they just, if they're an employee, they're let their employer handle it and they just move on with their lives.
yeah, exactly. In fact, they people talk a lot about what does good healthcare look like. And you talked at the beginning of the broadcast, making it simple. Well, here's something simple. If Dan was the one that said, well, he was asked, how is your health care at your company, and he'd say something along the lines of, what, I pay $32 a month for me and my four kids, and when we have any claims, my boss pretty much pays it all. Would you stop working for a company like that? And
no.
I sure would want to work for a company like that. Now, that is not so complicated. And in fact, I just had one of my friends just describe it like that. You know what? I pay $25 per week for my insurance and I don't pay shit when something happens to me. Okay, that's what every employer wants to hear, right? I mean that is a beautiful statement, but you don't hear that statement very often. But through something like a cafeteria plan, you can literally put these employees in a place where they have a zero deductible, and paying, that $32 a month like Dan is. That sounds like snake oil, even as it comes out of my mouth, like I'm selling you some shit that's not real. Well, it's real, but the employer needs to decide. It's not up to the employees.
Well, yeah, it's amazing, with that information, just how many people can save so much money in a year.
Yeah, I think my wife and I figured out when we switched to health sharing back in 2018, we saved $106,000 in 4 years.
Wow.
Now that's real money. But at the time it was 1,600 a month less. So it was like realizing it right then, but then on and on and on. So, but we're setting up a program right now that has basically avenues where employees can get information completely for free. So when we finally put our content out, it's probably going to be in just a couple months. There's going to be a button that you can click onto our website that for employees. There's going to be a button for employers, and there's also going to be a button for the distribution channels or the brokers and brokerage firms around the United States. And it's going to be designed with the cafeteria plan in mind so that the brokers can understand how they can represent that to their companies that they represent around the country. The employers can realize how to do this for a lot less cost than they think. And the employees will even have little videos that they can give to their bosses that says, hey, I just got this for free. And here's a little something called a cafeteria plan that I never even knew about before. But take a look at this. Maybe we could do this. And if the company ends up doing something, that employee will benefit from it, obviously. So
Absolutely.
John, I kind of want to shift gears here and ask you a question about the technology. How has the technology advanced the healthcare industry?
yeah, I think most people realize how technology has advanced everything so dramatically. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
years ago having my own calculator, okay? Now it's free on this thing, okay?
Yeah.
It's like that's crazy to think about how quickly that happened. And with blockchain technologies and everything else, but well, let me kind of talk about the technology like this. If you were going to sign up for health insurance, no matter what it was, individual, group health insurance, health sharing, do you think you can sign up through this right here, right now?
Yes.
Of
Probably.
course you can. Employers don't even know that when they have a new employee come on, usually their HR person says, "Oh, Evan, you're a new employee. Let me give you the stuff to sign on. Sign up with our health plan and all of our benefits." Right now, the employees do it themselves. They just get an email, a welcome email that says, "Hey, here's your health plan. Here's your dental plan. Here's your life insurance, and here's anything." And it's literally done for the HR person, which is that's brilliant, right? So but technology can work in so many wonderful ways in ways just to kind of connect things together. On my website I have a tool that is used around the country for more or less large employers that kind of connect everything together. Large employers are probably not as ready to move to a cafeteria plan design. If you're a company of 1,000 employees, for instance, and you have employees that are outside the country, and you want to insure them too, right? Well, a cafeteria plan won't do that. You got to live within the United States. Okay, you with me?
Yeah.
So if a large employer will self-insure their plan. Let's say if you are 1,000 employees, you're probably spending about 10 million a year. And so most of those larger companies are self-insuring their own insurance, meaning they're taking that $10 million spend and they're taking 9 million and they're saying, okay, we're going to pay our claims out of this $9 million, and the 1 million is all administrative costs. But when you pay your own claims, it's a big deal, right? Because I could go to get a knee replacement for $140,000 at one place, and another place across town could be 20. So big plans like that can connect things together. In fact, we've got, I'm not like advocating this, but this is something I know about in Minnesota. We have some place called Twin Cities Orthopedic that has a bundled knee replacement cost of about $28,000. But if you went to TRIA, if you went to Summit, if you went to any of the others, it's kind of a crapshoot. You don't know what you're getting. Well, if I'm the company that owns this 1,000-person company, I would want you to go to the highest quality place for the most reasonable cost, because I'm paying your claim, right? But oddly enough, in this business, the highest quality places around the country are the lowest cost on average. So Cleveland Clinic, there's all kinds of different places you can go for different reasons. But anyway, back to the technology thing, you have to have a program that kind of surrounds this whole thing. Okay? You have to have a third-party administrator that's connected to a high-quality RX provider. And all of that technology is existing today that most employers don't know about. But if one person's not talking to the other person in a big self-insured plan, a lot of things can slip through the cracks. So, I mean, it's advancing so quickly with AI and everything else now that I think probably within the next 5 years, you're going to be able to find your own knee replacement anywhere around the country for the highest quality and the best price. So, I mean, I'm not sure what AI is going to do, but I have a feeling it's going to explode a lot of things, and it's going to probably benefit a lot of the medical community as well. So.
But with that being said, does this technology that's up and coming, does it benefit the brokers more or does it benefit the people more?
It definitely will benefit the people more, but um, there's the people. It's like it almost has to be kind of a grassroots movement here, because like I said, employers choose what to do for their own employees. I mean, they're the ones that make the decision, and frankly, they're paying most of the cost a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But let me tell you about one that's just recently kind of come into play here in 2022, I believe they came out. Are you guys familiar with Tony Robbins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony Robbins stepped into the healthcare space for the first time with a company called Fountain Life. And I met with Fountain Life and the CEO down in Naples, Florida. They have a program, and my wife and I actually participated in this program, where they do a technology scan from head to toe, a 360 diagram of your heart, a 50-point blood test to see if you have any cancers or anything like that, even scanning inside your brain that could catch like strokes or anything like that before they happen.
Wow.
Okay, so Fountain Life is connected to a company called Fountain Health. So my wife and I went down there and we had these scans done. It cost us over 10 grand to get these scans done. But I thought to myself, like, we're getting into our mid 60s here. It would really be beneficial to know if something's going on, like, for instance, I'm not sure if you know this, but 50% of heart attack victims die because it's the first heart attack and they had something wrong that they didn't even know existed. So I heard that from Dr. Cap, the CEO at Fountain Life, and I said, we're doing this. So $10,000 we got our scan done, right? Well, Fountain Health, if you're a company of 50 or more employees, offers these scans to the employees, spouses, and kids for free.
Wow.
And that is going to rock the employer healthcare world. Like I said, when you get to a certain size, employee size at a company, you may or may not have the cafeteria plan. Do you think that that's the right fit, right? Again, those trade-offs. And when you weigh the pluses and minuses, you say, well, maybe I don't want to do that. But if you're a company of over 50 employees, you can adopt Fountain Health and get these scans done. And now you're avoiding like heart attacks before they happen, which those are the majority of the claims that happen within a plan anyway. So really, basically, the different solutions that I have in my book, all of them have technology involved. Every single one of them, the cafeteria plan, the PEOs or professional employer organizations, and the custom health plan designs, which is basically the big self-insured plans. I know
That's
that's a mouthful, but technology is going to rock everything in our world. It's just, I don't see how it can't be stopped either. So,
It's
Yeah.
already in the works. John, another great quote that you have from the book that really makes a lot of sense, but I think it would be awesome if you could elaborate on it a little more. Is that you say if you reduce the cost of health care, you can reduce the cost of health insurance. What do you mean by that exactly?
yeah, in a general sense, insurance companies gauge their pricing based upon their claims. Okay. So if the three of us owned an insurance company, um, we take in thousands of people's premiums from everywhere. Um, the claims that happen inside of our insurance company determine how much we charge in the subsequent years. And since there's no pre-existing conditions anymore, you remember that part, right? And the bill, the Affordable Care Act, said insurance companies have to pay an unlimited amount. I mean, you could have a 20-person company with $5 million in claims, okay, the insurance company has to cover those claims. So what's interesting about this is that there's different ways to minimize those claims. Like I talked about the Twin Cities orthopedic knee
Yeah.
replacement at 28,000 rather than 140,000, or a health sharing plan that does ask questions and does have medical requirements and manages this a little bit differently. But if you just leave it to, I have a part in my book that the broker says, well, the claims are the claims. I mean, we couldn't do anything about that, and your rates are going up 20 or 30%. No, you can do something about those claims. And for the companies that don't want to look at that cafeteria plan design and breaking away from that, if that doesn't make sense, um, a self-insured plan is easily described as this. If you're a company of 100 employees and you spend $1 million a year and you are a fully insured plan and you know all those premiums are going to the insurance companies and you're never getting a dime back, self-insuring means that you're saying, okay, on average, statistically, 2 out of every 5 years, or I'm sorry, 3 out of every 5 years, you're going to have a good claims year. So your 100 employees, it just so happens that there weren't a lot of cancers or accidents or heart issues or anything like that. So rather than giving them $1 million each year, you kind of break that up to between, now it's 800,000 that you pay claims out of, the 200,000 is the fixed cost. So if 3 out of every 5 years you have a good claims year, you keep some of that 800,000. You with me?
Yeah.
So it's like you do have the ability to do something as far as those claims. But, ultimately for me, if I'm a small company, I would not want to be attached to those claims. I would want to make sure that their insurance premiums are the lowest that they can get. And the lowest that they can get right now, Merrick and Evan, are at those exchanges. No questions asked. They can buy the insurance, right?
Yeah.
And then if they want an alternative, that health sharing is out there as well. So companies that will offer both of those things to companies under 50 employees, actually the claims don't matter after that. It doesn't matter at all, because the system is set up, if you do this through a cafeteria design, to help the insurance, or I'm sorry, help the employees and help the employer at the same time. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I answered your question there, but
No, it's definitely informative. It's obviously um extremely complex, but when you
yeah,
break it
it's too
down,
complex.
yeah.
And I think it's complex on purpose, frankly. Okay? That's my point in the book. They try to make it so that you really throw your hands up and say, you know what, I'm just going to stay with, the Blue Cross plan that's going up 15% because we had bad claims, and let me get back to running my company. I mean, that's really what it's designed to do,
Yeah.
is to have you say, well, we did what we could, but let's get back and try to make more money.
Yeah. And John, another thing you said in the book that just seemed so wrong were how some insurance companies even own these hospitals. Like, how is that not a massive conflict of interest?
Yeah, you tell me, man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I mean, there's insurance companies that own hospital systems. There's hospital systems that own insurance companies.
Yeah, and that
Okay?
has that ever been like, I guess, fought in the courts?
Not that I know of, not at all. And that's not something I've done a deep dive into. It just happens to be a fact. But again, the if you figure out where the incentives are in this whole mishmash mess of healthcare, it doesn't seem to be right that an insurance company would be owned by a hospital system or vice versa. That seems like that there should be some legislation that says, no, 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 you can't do that. Okay? But that's the way it's working right now, or maybe not working right now is a better way to put it.
And John, speaking of things that are messed up, you mentioned that from 2016 to 2017, insurance rates in Arizona went up 145%. I
Yeah,
had to reread that. I didn't know if I read that properly. That
I
just
know
seems
it.
absolutely insane.
Well, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, It really messed up the entire individual health insurance marketplace big time. We actually in Minnesota had a moment in time where Blue Cross Blue Shield left the state of Minnesota. They didn't find it profitable to be here anymore. Now they're back now, but every state was a little impacted a little bit differently. And I couldn't speak to exactly why Arizona got impacted so much. But for my state of Minnesota, before the Affordable Care Act was passed, you could buy any insurance policy whenever you wanted to. You did have to answer some medical questions, but even if you got denied coverage, you automatically got covered by a program in the state of Minnesota that said, hey, if you're denied, you automatically are eligible for this other program, which was about 15% higher premiums. So there was already a pre-existing condition solution. And actually, I believe this was in all 50 states. It might have been 49 of the 50 states, where if you did get denied by answering the medical questions that the insurance company said they weren't going to take you, then you were covered, right? But I don't know what happened in Arizona, but that's just like, I'm pretty sure what like happened is a lot of the insurance companies left the state, and the ones that stayed said, well, we're going to even survive this thing, we got to increase rates by 135%. And, so if you're an individual out there wondering, how am I going to get coverage here? Well, you guys remember at one point in time, they made it illegal not to own health insurance. You remember that, right? Well, they repealed that part of the bill. So it's not illegal not to own health insurance anymore. But yeah, it was a mess. I'm not sure exactly all the details. I wish I knew all the details of that, Merrick. And like I said, all I knew is that was a fact, that it went up that much in 1 year. That's insane.
It is insane. Kind of going back to when your wife was dealing with that pain in her arm and you had to go to the ER. I feel like this question might be a little more understandable for some of our listeners. Why is it that today in the United States, like the emergency room has become such a joke of a process?
Yeah, I mean, I have different thoughts about that. I mean, if you look at what we do, if you watch any of the shows on Netflix of what doctors do in emergency situations, it's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's truly remarkable the things that they do in a positive way to save people's lives and to reduce suffering and everything else. But the system is set up to where, like the doctors and the hospitals are not aware of the insurance companies, what their pricing are. I mean, a really simple thing is if you went in, not even to an emergency room, you just go to your local doctor and you have, like, let's just say you thought you broke your ankle, but you weren't sure. It was sprained, right? Well, if you get an x-ray and you ask them, doc, what's this x-ray going to cost? What are they going to tell you? Call your insurance
Yeah.
company. Now, shouldn't they know what an x-ray costs in their office? And I'm not really be super critical of them right now. I really am not. But that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, that you can't tell me what the cost of an x-ray is. I mean, you have an x-ray machine in there. You come in there, x-ray my ankle, you kick out something. There's got to be something that says what's the cost of this, right? Well, it's all in the hands of the insurance companies. And, we all trust the health insurance companies, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't trust them for one moment, okay? And, so again, your x-ray might be 450 at one insurance company. It might be 150 at another. Why? They don't tell you why. It's like it's a black hole of massive proportions, but the communication between the healthcare providers and the insurance carriers are almost non-existent. They when there's problems that exist, they battle back and forth on things. But what else in the marketplace do you not know? I mean, you went to the grocery store, and if they didn't have the prices in there, you'd think this is messed up. How can I not know what my oranges cost or something? So
Yeah.
it's just decades and decades of this system. And in my opinion, you just got to break your way out of the system. And just to take a look at it from outside the system and see, okay, what are the trade-offs and what are my choices outside the system? That's all you really need to do, I think, in order to help a small to mid-sized company deal with this mess. So
Yeah, John, that was actually one of my next questions was about kind of the trust we have in our health systems, specifically with prescription medicine. Like a lot of times it seems like they're giving so much prescription medicine out that, it may not even be needed. And it's also so damn expensive. Why do you think that is? And like, again, the most common example I could think of is insulin. It just seems so crazy that these prices are so high. And like you said, we don't even always know why.
yeah, and again, you take an example of a particular drug. I had a gentleman. We had a self-insured plan locally here in Lakeville, Minnesota, a company of about 160 employees, and he had Crohn's disease, and he was getting infusions each month, an RX infusion of a drug called Remicade. Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm sure none of your listeners know what this is, and just stay with me for a second, though.
Yeah.
So this was a self-insured plan design to where we could choose the RX provider, and we could go to what they're called as pharmacy benefit managers. Okay, we could go to a different pharmacy benefit manager that most of the United States is used to going to. CVS Caremark, Optum, and Express Scripts control 78% of the United States of America, guys. Believe it or not.
Wow.
But there's pharmacy benefit managers that you can choose that are different than those three big monstrous ones, right? So we repriced that Remicade. In fact, we got it from Canada, and we got it sent down. So this gentleman went from 16,000 infusions every single month, with, by the way, the company was paying out of their self-insured plan. They were paying those claims, 16,000, right? We repriced it up in Canada through this different pharmacy benefit manager that had a specialty drug provider. And we were able to get it sent down for $600 a month. So it went from 16,000 to $600 a month. And so what the pharmacy companies do, guys, is if you didn't know about that, you just continue to get charged the $16,000 a month that would go to your insurance company, and somebody would have to pay that, right? The employer would have to pay that up to a certain amount. And since it's all covered, that pharmacy drug charging that Remicade, they could go from 16,000 up to 60,000 a month. If the insurance company is still paying for it and the employee doesn't see that whatsoever, right? Because their plan is there's a copay for the $50 every month that he has to pay going in to get his Remicade treatments. But at the end of the year, the employer sees this huge claim, and then the broker comes back and says, you know what, there's going to be a 37% increase. The drug costs were just out of whack this year. Okay, that's probably one of the descriptions that someone would give. But when the insurance companies, supposedly have to pay it all, why wouldn't the pharmacy companies charge as much as? I'm not saying that they should, but in a business model, if you can get away with charging 60,000 a month rather than 16, and get it and put it to your bottom line, wow. I mean, that's a racket, guys. That's practically mafia-like right there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
And John, I guess before we kind of wrap this up, something that you mentioned in the book is how impactful Adam Smith's two books were, The Theory of Moral Sentiments and The Wealth of Nations. Can you
yeah,
kind of talk us through what those books did for you and the way you think about things?
yeah. I'm Adam Smith. His Wealth of Nations was the main book and the kind of the hero of one of my heroes, Milton Friedman, who's an economist. And the way it really comes down in almost any financial situation or business situation is if you can find your own freedoms, that's where the money is saved. So, like in the cafeteria plan, if these individuals are free to choose their own plans, it just happens to be that the system is set up right now to where there's a tremendous advantage to have those employees choose their own plan. So if I worked for you guys and I chose my own plan, which was my own RX provider, my own, doctor I chose in the network, my own deductible, whatever I chose, right? At least you give me the decency and the freedom to choose my own stuff, right? And if you're willing to help me pay for it, well, that's now you as my boss, you've realized your own freedom by saying, look, I'm just helping John every single month, and I'm giving him, let's just say, $600 a month out of the $800 cost. But you're free to pay that $600 now as long as you decide that that's your budget. Me, on the other hand, if my $800 premium goes up to $850 the next year, I can decide to go from Blue Cross to Medica to Health Partners to Preferred One. I can shop it. I'm free to do that however I want. It's the dignity of the freedom that actually allows the system to work. You take away that freedom and you have a top-down planning structure where the employer says, this is your program. You got to take one of my plans that I'm choosing for you. And that system is just not going to work because it doesn't provide the kind of freedom. Now, it may be a lot of work to some employers to say, my 100 employees, to let them choose for themselves, what they're going to choose in their own plan. But if you think about this realistically, they have to choose this once a year, only one time a year. And why are you not letting them decide? And the Wealth of Nations is basically an economic system that says we should have the choice and competition in the marketplace. So I can choose whatever insurance carrier or health sharing company I want. You as my employer should be free to help me in however you want to help me pay for that. But don't connect it all together, because then all of a sudden the freedom goes away and that top-down planning thing that, Adam Smith was so against just deteriorates and goes away. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I love how you continue to mention the word freedom, considering in the book you have a whole chapter designated to freedom. And I thought it was really interesting when you made the point that this generation today rarely ever talks about freedom. When you said when you were growing up, that was freedom was always discussed. It was freedom,
It's just
freedom
huge.
that.
I mean, it was in the 60s, it was probably way more talked about than in the 70s when I was in high school and college and so forth, right? Because they were fighting for their freedoms, against things like the Vietnam War, which was, I was fortunate enough not to hit that point where I had to go. But I have a son-in-law that went to Iraq. I have my best friend's older brother that was in Vietnam as an Army Ranger. And my dad went in 5 campaigns in World War II, including coming through Normandy.
Wow.
And survived it somehow. So what they did was they fought for our freedom, okay? Our literal freedom, right? But most people don't understand how economic freedom works. And it's literally just comes down to letting you make your own decision, letting you choose what's best for you and your family. And if you can just disconnect that a little bit from where your employer is controlling, if you ever think about it, you guys know what COBRA is?
No.
Cobra insurance, everybody thinks, oh my God, that's so expensive. Well, what Cobra means is that when you work for an employer, you're actually just renting the insurance from your employer. And when you leave your employer, the Cobra rules are that you can take that coverage with you, but now you lose your employer's contribution. So, if I was working for you in that example, I said you were paying 600 of my 800, right? And I only had to pay 200 a month. I think, hey, it's great working for Evan and Merrick. I only have to pay 200 a month. And then all of a sudden I leave and your group insurance sends me a Cobra notification, says, hey, dude, if you want to continue this, it's 800 a month. And then everybody in the whole country says, this Cobra insurance sucks. Well, all it is a reflection of how expensive your group insurance, your traditional, high margin group insurance plan with that health insurance company costed. And you didn't even know it, did you? So you got a little bit of education on Cobra today.
We got a lot of education today, John, and I think that's an amazing place for us to wrap this up. Evan and I are extremely appreciative of you. We know you and I have been in contact for a while now, and I'm very happy you're able to get this done.
Yeah, we thank
Well,
you.
you guys are doing a great job, and getting the information out is key. That's really the key thing for me as I embark on my consulting practice going forward here now. And I think the employees just realizing that they could have something different, is enough to where they maybe could send a little file or a video to their boss and say, "Hey, man, this not only could help me, but it could help our whole company."
Totally.
So
Totally.
that's what I'm probably most pumped about. So.
But John, thank you for your knowledge today. And before we let you go, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find more about you, your book, and your website that you're talking about?
Yeah, my website. We're actually going to be going through a redesign, but you can find me at jb-benefits.com, and that's where my website lives. We are going to be launching something new here in the next probably 90 days at healthinsurancesucks.us. So keep that written down as well. Didn't take me. It only took me pennies to buy that URL, but I got the domain and I'm ready to launch this thing. So
Yeah. All right, guys. Highly recommend the book, Health
You haven't
Insurance
read it
Sucks.
yet? Check it
Yeah.
out. It's a great
Learned,
book.
all
learned a
right.
lot that I didn't know. John, thank you once again, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Thanks. Keep the freedom going, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.